One another series I miss quite dearly. Pokemon. And you might be thinking, well, it's already got several new games, and new TV shows, and supposedly more TV shows as well. And you might be thinking, like, what do you mean? Why do you miss it? It's not going anywhere. That's because it's already too far gone. And you should know what that means. I shouldn't have to explain it. It's push essentially players and fans like me just over the edge in terms of what it's doing and what it's essentially accomplishing. Um, and it's not in an acceptable state. But to briefly summarise why I like the series to begin with, it's got a very likeable world. It's mostly like utopian, uh, outside of the bad people. But it's mostly a place where you live in harmony with everyone, and that's great. Um, and the other thing is it's a great escape from reality because what we lack in games is often like an in-depth world where everyone has their own emotions and feelings. And whilst Pokemon games, at least with the battle systems, are kind of disconnected from that, you do have these sort of mechanics in them, like Pokemon Ami, was it? I forgot what it's called. You have like care systems where you can literally treat your Pokemon like you would a pet, which is kind of neat, and it does provide benefits. Um, and I think that's a good idea, and that's why it feels so good to sort of play it and escape from reality. The other thing is it has some good stories here and there. I've only played, I think, 4 games. Hang on, no, 5. I played Omega Ruby, um, X, I think it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was X. And I played Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Moon actually. I didn't actually play the original, I just played the Ultra version. What the hell's going on here? I'm playing this whilst making a script. Uh, and then in the Switch, I played Pokemon Quest, which was garbage. And after that, I played Let's Go Eevee, which was sort of garbage, but it had nice moments in it. I love the interactions with Eevee. It's just super fucking adorable. I do miss those times. And then the final game I played before essentially giving up. It's Pokemon Sword and Shield. Well, I think I only played Shield actually. Uh, that was it. And the game's disappointed me constantly. Like, no matter where I looked, it was just a complete lolcow, basically. Because that's the only time that describes it. Whilst it has its good moments for sure, it was laughable in so many different areas. And it just wasn't enjoyable because of these lolcow moments, really. So I didn't like it in that aspect because it just felt embarrassing. Like, that's one of the main things I feel on the list and my reasons for not playing it anymore. I'll go into other bits later. Um, so the next thing I liked is actually the gameplay loop. I thought it was decent. It wasn't the best thing it could be, but it is good. I can't flaw the battle system, I can't flaw how it works. It's something that I could enjoy, sit back and enjoy for that matter. Even if there were like odd moments, but I'm more susceptible to difficulty sort of stuff than others, and it was mostly accessible in that area. At least in like Gen 6, and Gen 7 was a bit more punishing. But in 6, you could literally get away with using anyone. I could take fault with that, to be honest. But then it leads to the downsides of essentially Pokemon games, and what ultimately led me to quit. So, I would explain that Gen 6 and 7 were my first games. The truth be told, I'm also playing other ones. I managed to get my hands on Heart Gold and Soul Silver, I think it is. Check it up a look. And it hasn't aged well, just honestly. Those platinum, not hard gold soul silver. They've always got these weird names for some reason. It's always hard to tell. It could be just like Pokemon 1, Pokemon 2, and then the sort of thingy. I don't know where my voice is going. But platinum is meh, to be honest. Like, I'm struggling with it at the moment because I just can't find my way out. I don't know what to do. It's a bit confusing. There's no objective system, which is also an accessibility issue. I'm surprised they didn't have one because it's kind of bad for people with like bad memory, especially me now, where my memory just seems to be going every day. That's always sort of plaguing me at the moment. So yeah, I don't know why I was explaining that as a con, similar to that. One of the main cons was the graphics downgrade on Switch, and Let's Go Pokemon essentially gave the illusion that the developers had some clue what they're doing, but no, they had a clue what they're doing, but they didn't essentially emphasise that. They didn't expand on it, and as a result, you end up with the open world style, where it's a good system, but it's very badly optimised and just graphically really incomplete and embarrassing to look at. Because I remember back when Sword and Shield were teased, and the big sort of deal breaker for people was the tree, and it still is, to be honest. The tree texture is embarrassing, especially given it's like really up close to you. It's like in front of you. Like, what the fuck? This shouldn't be an issue, but it is for some reason. And if you notice, one of the reasons I stopped playing is a very big reason like that, because it felt embarrassing. You should be able to optimise that sort of thing. Like, there's literally no excuse other than hardware, but that wasn't explicitly stated, so there was no reason to believe that they were essentially doing this by necessity. It seemed like they were doing it on purpose. So that was always a big shitter in my opinion. The next problem is one that sort of reflects that, and that is the animations. Holy shit. The animations are terrible. They always were. They're a bit better in Gen 7, I admit, from what I remember of it anyway. But it's just terrible, and they have so many opportunities to make it better. You know, for something like Moonblast, for example, rather than putting a big sphere in the sky, have like a fancy animation where maybe like the Pokemon Water, you've got bipedal and tripedal, whatever. You literally can fucking animate that universally and optimize it if it does go wrong. Like, that's the thing. You can have like fancy background art and stuff, and you can change like the environment, like take notes from what certain other games do, especially now with like admittedly Genshin Impact on Star, all the crappy games. They had a good idea with having unique animations. But I'm not really asking for unique animations, I'm just asking for something that works. The other embarrassment, thank you, though. The other embarrassment is how the animations basically range from let's run up to this thing and just move my head a bit. Like, what? How is that a fucking wing attack? What the hell? It is embarrassing, simply put, and again, another reason why I sort of quit. I didn't want to be seen playing it. If people were watching that and were trying to figure out what was going on, they wouldn't. You know, it wouldn't be seen as an attack necessarily. Like, prove me wrong, feel free. I don't think they would think, oh, it's a battle. I think they would just think it's a dance. It's being honest, because there's literally no contact, there's nothing. You compare that to the anime, which often is really good at animating battles, especially at Sun and Moon. I still remember those being jaw dropping. But yeah, like, you compare them, it's like, oh, well, this is a battle, the games are not. it's fucking crazy to me. Yeah, animations need to be improved, and they definitely felt worse in the Switch games. Next thing is terrible gimmicks, and yeah, no surprise. I will admit, Gen 9 had a good idea from what I've watched of it anyway, and I don't know if it's executed well or not, but I do like the idea of having like a different type being the gimmick so you can like resist things. I always found that interesting. Um, but then you get into things like what Gen 8 did with Dynamax, and that was complete garbage. Like they tried to spin it and make it seem like a big deal, like the better Mega Evolution, but it wasn't. Mega Evolutions were much cooler, definitely. And they were cooler because they came associated with not only animations, I think, but they also came with a unique model. Well, most of them anyway. Charizard X was always pretty cool. Altaria's Mega Evolution's cool, Lucario's as well. Like, there's so many great things about it, and the only thing I can give Dynamax credit for is it can give like different types of Pokemon that wouldn't have one like Mega Evolution, but have something a bit different, like the giant Eevee with also some effects happening, and more fluffier. And then there's the Big Pikachu. Actually, one of the funniest moments in that anime, actually, I remember now. God, it was a terrible anime, but the funniest moment, in my opinion, was Feastamax. Fucking Pikachu eating tons of crap and just Dynamaxing based on that. That's so good. But yeah, they didn't execute the Dynamax thing well at all. It just wasn't interesting, regardless of what they did to it. Next problem is really gameplay was a bit stale. Legends Arceus made some changes that were good, and I was surprised when it came out to good reception, but in the core games, they're a bit off. The battle formula works, we definitely can't change that. But it does need some changes, I think. It needs to be more interesting. As well as the accessibility on it is good. With tracking moves are super effective or not. There are aspects that are. I've never liked the item system, for example. The one where you give Pokemon stuff and it takes a turn. I always found that a bit annoying. And I just wish that, at least in a single player, I wish you could. Well, even in multiplayer, I don't know how it works, so. But in single player, I just wish that you didn't take up a turn. Like, it feels so silly. It makes no sense as well. Because you can do two things at once, believe it or not. Like, most people are capable of that. And I don't know why that's not a thing anyway. But I suppose the other thing that's off of it is, there was something else. What was it? Think. Or don't think. Actually, yeah, reverse psychology might work. But maybe like things like QTEs, like take notes from modern turn-based games and try to figure out what makes them so good. Because I can't flaw things that are like in the background, like types and natures and stuff. I think they're fine the way they are, even though it's hard to tell. Definitely needs some sort of improvement in that sense. And again, I liked how I think Legends Arceus did it. I think even Gen 9 did it actually, now I think about it, where you can just literally attack a Pokemon and just one-shot. That'd be the battle process done. That's not like a constant repeat or grind like it is in the other games. That's definitely something that was good. But yeah, gameplay could have a bit more. Same with exploration. I always found exploration a bit unrewarding in areas anyway. Like, I remember in Gen 7 you used to pick up, and Gen 6 actually, pick up like TMs of stuff, and it was generally beneficial to explore. But in Gen 8, it seemed like they forgot that and didn't bother. And you literally couldn't get most things because they're locked, I think, from what I recall anyway. So it's never good. But that leads on to the next issue. Dexit. And yeah, it all ties into Gen 8 for some reason. As Dexit, removing Pokemon from the game is a terrible idea in general. But the fact you did it to such a severe degree is proof that something needs to change. Whether it's the platform, or the way you optimise the games, or just go back to fucking like the old stuff, like sprites. You could definitely animate sprites better than the fucking 3D model, I think. As much as it's nice to have high quality shit, it doesn't need to be this high quality. Yeah, like, it'll take time to do that, especially with like so many artists, but again, tying into the improving animations thing, there's ways around it. You don't necessarily need to 3D render everything. You could just do 2D and it'll be just as cool. But as long as it's a good transition. But like the 2D animation of these things would be fucking amazing. Like, just using an example of like Bite. You can depict that in different ways. Like you've got unique animations for obviously the Pokemon getting attacked. But with Bite you can literally show it with like sort of an actual bite, I guess, like in layers and stuff. There's different ways around it, I think. And that doesn't take much resources, and you can animate a background with that as well. So it's literally just like the PNG Pokemon. It's just for like Roberto. And that'd be far better. But yeah, like Dexit, not being able to use a favourite Pokemon is bad. People definitely have favourites that are not in the usual scope of Pokemon anyway. For example, I like Trubbish. No, I'm just kidding. Or am I? So the next problem is the double game formula. A bit like the Pokemon Trubbish. It's complete garbage. I do not like this idea that the games need to be two separate things to get the same results but different Pokemon. This is just stupid. It never made sense. There's no hardware reason for it. It just makes it not fun, especially when these Pokemon are in the games. Like, you don't need like Pokemon from Sword to access it in a shield. What am I trying to say? God, I can't remember. But like, say you wanted Alone and Vulpix from another game, like I think it was Pokemon Moon. Had this? No, it had the other one. But say you wanted essentially Alone and Vulpix. I was playing Pokemon Moon. Alone and Vulpix is in Pokemon Sun, I think. You'd have to either get the game or trade it, but you can get it in both games. Like, it's literally possible to do that. They're in both games, so there's no excuse to essentially solo them into like one game rather than both, or just stop having both games altogether. It's such an obvious design choice that really you're losing profit for not doing it, and it's not beneficial to players to have two different games. It's never made sense. And given that we don't even have save files anymore, how the fuck are we supposed to, for example, breed a starter? You're literally forced into either breeding it for others and trading it, or buying the other game and doing it there, so you can gift it to yourself. But it's just a terrible idea. It's never made sense to me. It's just I'm stumbling because it's just so fucking baffling. Just make it a single game. It's so simple. Such a simple concept, and that's what Legends Arceus, I think, did well too. In fact, it was only one game. You didn't have to buy a second one to do like what the other game would do. which is just new Pokemon and a different legendary, admittedly. It's just lazy, but they separate the two. I know there's like probably some word thing like find and replace, and you pick up the legendary Pokemon name or even the sort of side Pokemon from that, and that's it. That's literally their job. It's an utter embarrassment. Seriously. This needs to stop. That brings in the next thing, which is ironic. Pokemon needs to be more like a cash cow. Basically, stop releasing new games immediately and start focusing on making one thing at a time. And seriously, all this shit that comes out, like every month, I swear, it makes it feel like a cult. Because it literally probably is. It's literally cult behaviour. You know, making as many fucking, what is it? It's not a site-op, I don't know, MLM, I think that's what it is. I think MLMs and cults are quite similar, but it's basically that. You're just releasing things to profit and not actually giving anyone anything. And you know, here's an example. I think what's that Pokemon game? What was that one? I can't remember. But like, imagine there's a Pokemon game where you just get PNGs. It's not like an NFT thing, but you collect Pokemon through like dialogue interaction or something. Like maybe a text adventure game. Like it does nothing. It's not really anything at the end. For all we know, it's probably AI generated now, but it's just not interesting. And when you look at all the slop that's out now, it's like similar things in a sense. Like they're trying to copy other things too. Pokemon Sleep, I don't know much about it, but it sounds like a terrible idea. It's not really going to help sleep, I don't think. And it depends on execution too, admittedly. I don't think it's a good idea. Then you look at the Pokemon Unite thing, which is like a MMO. I think I actually played that. Yeah, I think I did. It was crap. It's like the MOBA Pokemon, and it was shit as well. I don't know anyone that's liked it. I don't think I've ever seen anyone review it, to be honest. But it's like, it's more slop, and they're trying to make Pokemon essentially invade these areas and use its likeness to profit from it, and that's definitely a morally wrong thing to do. As much as people want more Pokemon, you're just kind of being lazy with it. Unless it's like a crossover thing, it never really works, it never really lands for me, at least personally speaking. And at the end of the day, what I want from Pokemon is either a fun experience or like a core game. It's not really hard to achieve, I don't think. I'm just fed up of it. Simple as that. And I just wish Pokemon was more than the core games, was not being complete low quality slop. I think Pokemon Cafe is like that as well. That came on Masters X. God. Fuck's sake. The naming scheme on that is terrible. Gotta remember that controversy. Wish I could forget. It's just so many baffling decisions, and one of them, you need to give up making constant games. Like, stop trying to monopolise the market, essentially, is what I'm saying. Make better quality games that people can enjoy, even like momentarily. Don't make live service trash. We already have enough of that. Let's stop trying to be like everyone else. I remember playing poker and I fucking hated that. It's one of the worst Pokemon games I've ever played, I think. I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't know how to do a fighting game, I didn't know how to play it. It just wasn't fun. I struggled a lot on that. Couldn't even figure it out. Turns out watching a playthrough. This all ties into the next thing actually. It's just weird. Be more accessible and apply feedback. One of my big complaints regarding the Let's Go games is its terrible emphasis on motion controls. essentially forcing you into it, and the non-motion controls which were there were very good. Um, this has been consistent throughout future games as well. The inaccessibility, where we literally have no excuse for not having specific features like voice acting or text to speech at the very least, or in-game guides about Pokemon for those unfamiliar with it, like type charts. I'd also like to add difficulty sliders. This way you can please both new players and old players. Like, it's a simple fix. Like, increase difficulty, maybe resistances, like disable XP band and shit. Like, there's different ways to address this. Making the game accessible doesn't mean making it easier. It just means making it a better experience. That's what accessibility is about. And even changing things like text colour and stuff is a big deal. Even something like colour blindness is a great start. It's not the only thing we need, because a lot of developers seem to think that for some reason. It's like so many good things that you can do with accessibility. Again, without punishing players, without punishing the player base for just existing. So that's something that needs to change. That sort of leads on to my last point. Needs to be more than battling. Believe it or not, everyone likes action, but some just want like Nintendogs, but for Giratina and Girls Lord specifically. I'm definitely the same, to be honest. How much more interactive and meaningful would this be? Like, overall, I think it would be very meaningful and interactive, and it would also be more accessible to people like parents, for example, who wouldn't otherwise want to be playing a game about battling. Maybe like it's more like the mothers, I think. I don't know why it's always women that seem to not like the battling aspects. It's not that there's anything wrong with that, but I do agree that there needs to be more than battling to Pokemon. That's why the animes were pretty good. Well, animes, I say, but there's only one good one, and that was Solomon based. But yeah, it could be more than that, and it sort of addresses like what I said about the shlop that comes out. I'm not asking for that. Basically, what I'm asking for is something that people can enjoy, and you can do things that mimic others. Like, there's a form of flattery, as we know, but they do it in such a way that it just feels like it's a cash cow, and it's literally shlop. It doesn't have the quality of a good Pokemon game, it doesn't have the quality of Pokemon for that matter, in some of these cases. That's why I hate the TCG game that got cut out recently. Fucking hell, that's awful. People are like promoting it, even though I think it's got gambling. But it's like such a boring idea. I literally don't know how it blew up even. Like Marvel Snap, I remember that. That was a decent idea. Something that hadn't necessarily been done before. But like, it's just so bad that Pokemon's just copying it. It's just, like, why? It makes no sense. Yeah, just things need to change, and obviously I'm susceptible to being wrong. That's part of being human. I don't know if many people know that, because apparently they don't. But yeah, like, Pokemon could be so much more again. And I wish it was. I'd love like a Nintendogs themed Pokemon game. I'd play the hell out of that. It seems like it'd be very wholesome and cute. Especially if you get a Giratina. That's one of them. Even if it's like a limited selection, it's fine. Like, that's not really the problem, and I think people just want more Pokemon without necessarily diving into the, again, shlop or the grind set of Pokemon. What it's become, basically. I think that's all that people ask for now. Again, I could be wrong. Just feel free to be wrong. Yeah, that's like all the end of the dislikes, and now I'll just conclude this by saying, as much as I love the world of Pokemon, there are definitely improvements that need to be made. I'm definitely not happy with the state of it overall. The file's not nice. It's got a long way to go before it's reached its peak, in my opinion. And people say that 2D games have it, but I disagree. It's a modern era. We have the resources to make something big. There's literally no excuse to make what could be one of the best Pokemon games yet. And like even with like a list of dislikes, like why do I play games that I dislike strongly? And it's because there are good aspects to some games I dislike. Even this, for example, Final Fantasy XIV here, it's got many problems, but it's still a decent game at the core anyway. Like I can still play classes, I can still farm mounts. I've still got like player interaction and stuff. There's many different things that make it great, and those good things have their own weight to it. And sort of brings up a weird sort of story. I actually had an idea for a video, or idea in general, about FOMO scale, where I rank the fear of missing out on games based on how what the fuck is going on in this thread? Based on how the how each thing ranks, and the sort of conclusion I came to is that games being in the mid-range is generally more acceptable, and it's because I assign the weight to things, and there's different aspects, there's like server, there's like characters and progression, and even like limited time stuff, which obviously is FOMO, just objectively. Pokemon had that actually, at one point. It definitely falls in that category there. It's not all FOMO, but it has elements of like scumminess. It definitely feels troubling at times as well describing this, because people don't seem to understand that even if you dislike a game or not, you want to see it do well in that sense. You don't want it to fail. Like you like the idea, you just don't want to see it fail. That's why people make these complaints about games, even if they're like dedicated to it, and even make their livelihood based on it. That's why you see outrage, especially when there's like changes that don't need to be done. There are definitely toxic communities that in and out of games. Like it's complicated. Yeah, like the weight of how a game impacts you is important. With Pokemon, I feel like the embarrassment of being seen playing it is definitely one of great importance. And yeah, it's like my biggest turn off for not playing a Pokemon game now. Like the graphics and animations alone. That's not even going into the other issues I mentioned, which are definitely important in their own way. But holy shit, the graphics, they need to change, that's for sure. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll go eat some chocolate now to calm down. See for myself. Maybe kill me, but yeah. So everyone another time.